Trade alert, guys. Welcome to the Hawk Zone Rundown. We're live. Some big news coming out of the Seahawks today. We swapped linebackers, and also we're going to get into some other news. It's a busy day, man. Some Abe Lucas updates and all of that stuff. Also, we're going to take your comments and questions throughout the live stream here, and all of that on the other side.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
And it's run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got away. Leon Wilson to catch. Smith and Jigba. The Seahawks are going to hold the NFC Championship.
Every year, you're going to know is it going to be another 9 and 8?
Players who prove got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear? That's trading DK Metcalf.
Make him aggressive.
This is the Hawk Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
You guys are tuning into the Hawk Zone with Ryan and Bryce. Big news. Making a move today. Earnest Jones coming over to the Hawks in exchange for Jerome Baker and a 4th round pick. This signals a lot of stuff, man. Making moves. Second trade in as many weeks. Bringing over Robertson Harris the week before from the Jags. And, just areas of concern. Not so much the D-line, but more the depth that we talked about before. This was an area of concern. You and I were talking about Baker a lot and just how, just not really getting it. And but this doesn't come, it comes as a bit of a shock. He played a few games with us, obviously hurt through camp and a little bit during the season. But yeah, man, this is a trade. Earnest Jones, young guy. Bryce, give me your initial thoughts right here.
I am so excited about this trade, man. This is huge, I think, for Seattle and for Mike Macdonald to get a linebacker in here that I think is gonna. Well, I've got a pretty good feeling is gonna fit what they want to do here better than Jerome Baker did. I've been texting this morning with a bunch of different people and different people I know that are connected and finding out what sparked this trade. Couple things have come out. Seattle wanted Jones back when he was with the Rams. When they were trying to ship him off this offseason, Seattle wanted Earnest Jones. They identified him as a guy, Mike Macdonald did, potentially as a guy that they wanted. And the Rams wouldn't trade him within the division, which we kind of figured as much when we talked about it at points in the offseason, hey, there's a linebacker. Maybe we'll go get Jones. And then we both were well, there's no way the Rams are going to trade him up to Seattle. He was such a good player. And so, now what they've kind of identified is they identified what you and me have talked about for the last few weeks. Jerome Baker was not a fit in this defense. There's been reports coming out now. He wasn't happy here. It just didn't work. It wasn't going to work. And John Schneider and Mike Macdonald probably sat down and Mike probably said to him, look, I need a linebacker. I need a true Mike linebacker for my defense to work. Look what happened when we traded for Roquan Smith in Baltimore and I got a true linebacker that fits my scheme. It starts to open things up. And I'm not comparing Earnest Jones to Roquan Smith. I'm saying what the deal speaks to is Mike Macdonald needs linebackers that fit his scheme properly. And the thing with Earnest Jones is he's playing in that scheme in Tennessee, right? Denard Wilson's down there. He was on Mike Macdonald's staff in Baltimore, and they run the same defense. So the learning curve is going to be super easy if there is any for Jones here coming up here. Mike Macdonald's already kind of spoken on the trade. And one of the interesting things, and I was on Dan Vian's live show earlier, and one thing I said on there is I have a feeling Jones is coming in to play Mike, and they're going to kick Dotson to Will, where he is actually where he had his breakout year in Buffalo. So there's a couple moving pieces here, but honestly, man, to be brutally honest, this makes me super excited for this franchise and for this team and where their direction is.
Yeah, I mean, the exciting thing, we'll get into Jones as a linebacker, but the biggest signal as well is that they're not using this year to just kind of sit back. Like they're making moves now, and like you just touched on, Mike maybe going into John's office, say, "Hey man, I need a linebacker. This isn't it. I know we tried this, but we got to do something here." And then the fact that they took care of business in Atlanta, they're coming home. It's a reeling division, and they're in first place. So it's a combination of, hey, I came here and signed a 6-year deal, not to just maybe get things going in year 3 of my contract. I want to get it going now. We're here to compete. We're 4-3. If I get a couple of guys in here that you can get in and we can shore things up, then let's go. And if you look at it, man, we got it. We have a good chance to really do some things in this division now. You start making moves, back to back moves like this, in back to back weeks. You get excited. A lot of positives after last game, and we really talked about how weak the linebackers are. Well, we just had Mookie Alexander on a couple days back, and basically we're like, the linebackers are a problem. And we touched a lot on Jerome Baker. So the fact that we not only pick up a young guy in Earnest Jones, Baker's out the door, which a guy that probably was going to walk anyways. So it's good news, man. Touch on Baker a bit as a linebacker. I know he's young. He's 25. Uh, just and he's coming from a Titans team that, first of all, he was second in tackles, I think, with 44. And the Titans, I know they're 1-5, but they're a top defense. They're putting up yards per game, right? So you bring in a guy here. Our biggest problem is stopping the run. He's going to help with that. And like you said, he's coming over from a place that played the same type of style of defense. So you're hoping it can just be like a plug and play, and not too much of a learning curve for him early on, man. So just touch on him a little more as a player and what you like specifically about Ernest Jones.
So there's a couple things with Ernest Jones I really like. I really liked, because when he was with the Rams, he had Bobby as his kind of tutor his rookie year. That's when Bobby was down there in LA. And Bobby really spoke highly of him. Even when he came back up here, Bobby spoke highly of him. He is a true Mike linebacker in the sense of he's really good at carrying coverage up the field with tight ends. But he's so good. And this is the one thing with your Mike linebacker that he needs to be is he needs to be able to understand and anticipate concepts and things that are going to come at him on defense. And that's one thing Ernest Jones is really good. There were a couple plays. I've already started going back and watching the last week's game that he's had versus Tennessee versus Buffalo. And there's a couple reps where like he carries a seam route essentially down the middle of the field, understands that there's going to be another route coming underneath, breaks off and stops a dig route to Dawson Knox right underneath. He has another moment where he opens up and recognizes the backside dig is something Allen probably wants and settles himself in a zone right there to take it away and forces Allen to throw the ball to a quick out instead of the 10-yard dig he wants. And then when it comes to blitzing and impacting the run game, he's a very solid tackler. He fills holes really well when it comes to the run game in the backside. And that's where I look at this and I go, that's what was missing. We missed a guy that understood what was coming at them and how to anticipate and break it down. Like Jerome Baker, there were plays that stood out to me. Like, for example, the one we always talk about with him in coverage with Kittle. Like, you can't lose George Kittle in coverage when you're playing the 49ers. Like, you just can't. And then in this last game versus Atlanta, a lot of our backside run issues where Bijan Robinson was able to hit things on the backside of a run after the front side had been properly contained and bottled up was because Baker struggled at flowing. Like, he just didn't fit that. He didn't want to come down and get in there and put his nose in there and make plays. I really think that that's where you're going to see Jones kind of be the upgrade that we're looking for. We're not going to see a lot of waiting and catching as a linebacker. He's going to get right in there and engage and fill those spots in this run game and fill those gaps. And then also affect in the pass game. But the bigger thing too is the amount of ability he's going to free up Dotson to have. Oh, I think we may have lost Ryan here. Technical difficulties for Ryan, but for our listeners, like I think you're going to see Dotson really have a positive effect from this moving back to Will, because his spot as a Will linebacker is where he kind of grew up, where he got most of his play time last year in Buffalo when he took over in Buffalo was at that Will spot. So I think overall for Seattle, this is going to be a good move. So let's get some of our questions in here that you guys have already started throwing in. Let's go with Michael's here. So Michael Fawcett, I'm kind of confused by this trade. Same position, playing the same type of defense. Why would they trade Earnest if he's playing well, or accept Baker? Is he playing bad in a similar scheme? So part of the Earnest trade here from Tennessee's perspective, guys, is Tennessee, I think, has come to the idea and the concept that they're pushing for next year. They're not looking at, making the playoffs this year. They're 1-5 or 1-6 now. And they're kind of selling on their season. They're doing a clearing of house. Now, yes, Earnest Jones is a young linebacker, but they also drafted a young linebacker in Cedric Gray. And they really want to see what they've got in him, because they have him for 4 years on a rookie deal. And so with that being said, they're roughly around the same age. I think Gray maybe a year or two younger. And they really want to see him play and develop. And they both play the same spot. So you're not going to pay a guy that's going to stunt the growth of your rookie necessarily if you have high hopes for your rookie. So them making this trade, they get a 4th round pick out of it. And Seattle gets an upgrade at something that Mike Macdonald has identified as what he needs. And the fact that he's already said he's playing this Sunday, he's going to come in and be the Mike, that tells you all you need to know. And I have it on pretty good authority that Seattle really wants to extend Earnest Jones. Like, they identified him as a foundational piece of this team going forward and of this defense. So, Michael, I hope that answers your question there. Let's see if we got any other ones in here. Amy puts out, Michael, it's a fire sale for the Titans. They get a pick which they want and someone who is fine to take the place. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty spot on there, Amy, from their perspective. They're in fire sale mode.
And if you look at it too, they traded him for a 6th round pick, when he came over for the Rams. So they look at it too, pretty good value on their end. They get a 4th rounder in next year's draft. So, and like you said, fire sale, they got a young guy. It makes sense for them too. I mean, they just got rid of Hopkins. So, makes total sense, man. Do you think it has any bearing about how they feel about Tyrese Knight? Or do you think he's just gonna, this is just like, okay, you know what, we didn't have plans to start this guy anyways. We got him in the later rounds. Let him develop. Or do you think there's something that Mike sees where, I like certain aspects of him, but as far as maybe being a true dominant starter in this league, maybe not?
I think they do view Knight as a starter eventually. But what I'll say is, I think what'll play more into the Tyrese Knight decision is how Dotson plays at Will linebacker. Tyrese Knight isn't a Mike. That's why they've gone and got Earnest Jones. They've gone and got their Mike. I think that's going to be, if Dotson plays well, there's a chance they extend both Dotson and Jones and let Knight develop again, and then move off of one of the two in a couple of years. And then, kind of go from there with it. I don't think this is an indictment on Tyrese Knight. I think this is truly an indictment on, we need a foundational linebacker at the Mike spot for Mike Macdonald's defense. And they finally potentially have that now in Earnest Jones.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love the move, man, just for a lot of reasons. It just signals an area of need and what Mike wants to do, but also just like signals to this locker room, man. Like, we're here, we're ready to compete, and I think, not that we're going to get into it, but I think, anybody that thinking they're trading DK at the deadline, well, I mean, they weren't anyways, but you can put that to rest, because, this team's here to try to win a division this season.
No, exactly. And so just a couple other comments that have kind of slowly trickled in here. Gary, how's it going? I know it's probably late over there for you in the UK, but he goes, when Aaron Donald retired, he said this defense now belongs to Jones. Then the Rams traded him. That has to mean something. No, 100% it did. And if you watch, there's an interview from back in August when the news is kind of breaking that they're going to end up trading Jones. Sean McVay goes off on a reporter who asks about it because he is choked. Like, they did not want to have to lose Jones. Like, you look at how their defense is. I think they're 30th in DVOA currently, but their defense is one of the worst in football right now. Part of that is you don't have a true Mike, and Ernest Jones was that for them. So, they wouldn't trade him to Seattle when that came out, in the offseason that they were going to move him. And now he's back in the division, and we've got 2 games coming up with the Rams in the next few weeks.
What's McVay thinking? What's McVay thinking now? Eh? He's like, hey, I
Oh,
did
if I'm
everything
McVay,
I
I'm going,
can to
"Shit."
avoid trading him in the division, and then it just kind of goes not really full circle, but you're pretty close back to where you are. You're back in the division. And then you look at it too. Guys can be like, well, LA got rid of him, and then Titans got rid of him. 7 games later. But you look at it's all about the Titans situation. This
Yes.
guy's a free agent, and and you're gonna have to pay the guy. So they're in full rebuild, and like you said, they drafted a young linebacker. So it doesn't signal any red flag to me in that regard. You looked at his, you just talked about what Donald said. You look at his PFF grade last season was phenomenal. And then you also factor in that who our head coach is and what he's done with linebackers. So that gets you
Yep.
even more excited. It's just a combination of just, it really quick, like for the 3-game losing streak, and then this 10 days off, bringing in Robertson Harris, now this trade in the middle of that, you have the win in Atlanta. It's funny how things can change and your outlook just changes, really week to week in the league. Right. But the positives to some more positives here to get excited about if you're a Seahawks fan.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just a couple more, comments and statements from our listeners on the Ernest Jones trade. So Gary, again, he loves he's only 24. If Dotson and Knight work out, the linebacker group could be set for the next 3 to 4 years. And one guy that's not getting talked about enough that I think is a plan for Seattle in that room as a depth piece is Drake Thomas. I think you could have your 4 linebackers now in Seattle with, if Dotson plays well at will and you re-up him, you have Dotson, you have Jones re-up potentially, Knight and Drake Thomas. We're not even worried about linebacker in Seattle unless we're going to take swings on special teams guys and undrafted guys late in the draft. Like, this is the other thing with this trade is we all talked about linebacker being such a focal point potentially in the draft to get another guy in here because Baker wasn't cutting it. Like, we've done these 1-year deals with Dotson and Baker. If you keep Jones and Dotson and you've got Knight and you got Drake Thomas, like, you're okay. Like, now we can use that, maybe that piece that we have on another positional group that we need to upgrade, offensive line, defensive line, whatever it may be. And the other thing people have to understand with this 4th round pick that we gave up, we're going to get comp picks back from the Jordan Brooks and Damian Lewis, and one of them could potentially be a 4th round pick. So you're not really losing as much as you think in the 4th round, and you're not getting a linebacker of Ernest Jones quality in the 4th round either.
Well, that's what you have to look at too. People get too worried about, well, you traded a 4th or you got him in the 6th. I mean, we cut one of our 4th round picks this year in DJ James, right? Or we're sorry, 4, or was he 4th? Or was he?
I think he was 5th
that
round
was
pick.
Pritchett. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, this is a guy that could be potential a long-term answer for you at linebacker. So, even a 1st round pick, draft pick, you don't know what that's going to turn out to be. So I'm not worried about that. Like you said, comp pick back. You're worried about right now, the big thing about how this team's ready to look to compete. It's just a clear message about what they want to do. And that's the exciting part about it, man.
It really is. And so Chris here has one. I like this. So the Rams wanted Byron Murphy and wouldn't trade us Jones. Now we have both of them to use against them. I'd love to hear McVay this week. Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point here. And I think McVay is probably more pissed off than most people that this has kind of backfired on him in a way. So yeah, no, Chris, I agree with you on that. Let's have a look here. This is a really good question. Guys, I think Ryan's having some technical difficulties on his side, so I'll keep carrying this conversation. But Hawks fan Matt writes in, if we had lost to the Falcons, do we make this move now? I'm gonna pose
Good
that to you,
question.
Ryan. What
That's
do
a
you
good
think?
man, actually was thinking about that before we came on live here. I It's a good question. Like we said, that was a must-win game for a lot of reasons. A, the season. B, the confidence and how Mike's going to keep this team up. Because really, like you said, you lose 4 conference games. Like you're essentially sure maybe you're still tied for the division, but it's looking like not a great team. It's really hard to say, man. I'm just glad we're not in that position because like we said, if they came out of that 10 game layoff mini buy and didn't look much different when they're playing the Falcons, we would have thought that would have been maybe a lot of the theme for the rest of the year with this team, and then maybe we develop and stuff like this. But I think plus the trade, plus the fact that how we played and played a really complete game, I think there was like some more optimism with this team, like, hey, we can be the best team in this division. And the fact that the Niners are really, and they're getting piled on with injuries now, losing a guy like Ayuk. Debo was in the hospital with pneumonia. Like they're everyone's dropping on that team. Brock Purdy not looking good with all his, because all the Avengers aren't there. So I think it's a combination. I really do. I think if the Niners were playing really good and we lose that game too, like maybe this trade doesn't happen. So I think it just works out that how things are starting to shape up. And it's like when we made the Leonard trade, we were 6-3, right? So
Yeah.
it was looking like, hey, let's add a piece. So I think that, yeah, I think it might not have happened in my opinion. What do you think?
Um, I think it potentially still could have because of the fact that they view him as a foundational piece potentially tells me that they may have made this move regardless. Now, I'm going to say something here. Chris brings up a good point with it. He says, I still think they make the trade, but it might be viewed as a desperation instead of adding for a playoff or divisional push where we're seeing it now. It may have been done and may have been viewed as, hey, they really screwed this up. They need to address it as soon as possible. So, kind of, two sides of that. The other, thing with this trade, and this is something too, Curtis Allen chimes in. Hey, Curtis, how's it going? To Gary, he goes, Mike Macdonald said today, Dotson will keep the green dot. I think that's probably just to alleviate pressure on everyone and not to make Dotson feel like he's necessarily done
Yeah,
or
exactly.
played poorly. I do think going forward, if they sign Jones, he will become the green dot wearer in this defense. But, there's just so many things I like about Jones's game. And one thing is his recognition. He's a very smart linebacker and can anticipate and move and get into run fits really well. He covers things. He understands what an offense is likely to throw at him. So I really, truly think he's going to potentially improve Dotson's game and even Tyrese Knight from an opportunity to learn. And the other thing is how young he is. That's the thing I like about this trade, Ryan, is we're talking about a guy that turns 25 this month. We're not talking about a guy that we're trading for that, is 29 turning 30 or 28 turning 29. We're talking about a guy that if we get him for 3 or 4 years, like we're going to get him for a good chunk of his prime years as a linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, and like we all love Leonard, but that was a situation last year where you were bringing in an older guy. Where this guy, man, 25. I mean, you're just entering your prime here these next few years. So it's a great move all around. Like I said, Baker just wasn't working out. And we knew that. Like, these were 2 guys on 1-year deals, but Dotson and Baker. And you were like, okay, see if something sticks, right? We talked about like Jenkins and a lot of the free agents they brought in. Let's see if something sticks. We're moving on from the Bobby Wagner era, from the Jordan Brooks era. Let's just see, these are kind of maybe stopgap guys or potential extensions. We both thought out of the 2, Dotson might have be the favorite in that. Obviously, that's evident now. But now you got a guy like he just didn't get rid of Baker for something else. You brought in another linebacker, a guy that we like. I just can't wait to see this guy. Like, and just some of the pieces now, man. Like, we're just trying to. It's not like we're like putting band-aids on things either. Like you said, it's not like, okay, let's just bring this guy in so we can improve the run defense temporarily. So, whatever. This is a legit dude who is young and tackles and plays the run. And it's just, it's exciting to see these kind of moves here. Yeah. And And then, like you said, we play the Rams in 2 weeks too. So McVay gets to see him on the other side of the field too. So yeah, man, it's exciting.
So the thing that's interesting too with this is you get him also with a bye week coming up. So he gets another week of learning this defense, getting in this scheme. You know, Drew Sports brings up a good point here. He's like, they could still transition Jones as the season progresses. He needs to learn the playbook before they're taking the dot. I think that's a potential. I think they may just ride out Dotson though this year and then make the move because he's already, you know, everyone's used to hearing him make the calls. So now you're not switching that up and making too much of a change on the defensive side. It'll be very interesting. But the thing I like about this is we're self-scouting better at areas of deficiencies than I feel we've done. Like you look at the Robertson Harris trade. Like, yes, we got a guy that was 32, but he fit a issue we were struggling with in our depth and plays a certain role in Mike Macdonald's scheme. And this is what we've alluded to earlier about his scheme and getting guys that fit into his scheme. Now you're starting to see Robertson Harris was great in the Falcons game. He fit such a niche for what we needed him to do. And I think he's a guy that they're going to potentially keep around. And he doesn't have a lot of money guaranteed going forward in his deal. I think it's all non-guaranteed anyway for the next 2 years. So we can then, you know, move that, change it how we need to. You're starting to see some things and pieces coming together. But, you know, there's some other comments in here about another piece of news today that came out, and that is Abe Lucas and George Fant have had their open their practice windows to return. So that's another huge piece of news here is that listen to Mike Macdonald talk today, and what his notes have already come out with is they expect Abe back after the bye week.
Right. Yeah.
That changes a lot, man. Like we've just now got an upgrade at our linebacker spot that was an issue. And on our offensive side, a big issue has been our tackles. Mike Jarrell played well.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Forsythe isn't practicing today, so it doesn't look like he's in line to start coming back this week potentially. So it might be Mike Jarrell again versus Buffalo. And you're telling me George Fant and Abe Lucas are now opening up their practice windows to return. So after that bye week, our full offensive line, like full, might be actually healthy.
Yeah, well, things are coming together, right? And I think that's a huge thing. Like we had Byron Murphy out, and look at the impact when Byron comes back. And so you got he's healthy. You if Jarrell can, just hold it down just for another couple of games or whatever, then that's fine. I mean, this is going to be a tough matchup against Buffalo anyways, but it was just a lot of positive signs. So you get, if Abe comes back after the bye, that's what you and I sort of thought that, that could be in a timeline for him. And then it's just kind of see how he does. But that would be a huge boost. Guys are starting to get healthy again. We're in a pretty good position to be in, like, listen, if after 7 games, if I said, hey, we're going to be in first place in the NFC West, before the season started, I mean, you would have been happy as hell. No question about it. Whatever the record is, it's the fact that we're in first right now, and now we're making some moves. And not only possibly in the short term, but in the long term. Like you said, Earnest Jones, potentially this could be a longer term guy at that position. And then, like you mentioned earlier, maybe something we don't have to worry about come this draft, and we can focus our needs in other areas, right? So, yeah, I'm excited about the Abe news because at least it's not another he's just jogging and doing some ladder work outside the facility, right? And that's the encouraging news, that it's at least something else that, oh, wait a second, this guy could potentially step back on the field here coming up.
Exactly. And that's the best thing. Mike Macdonald even made a joke in his press conference. He walked up to Abe Lucas and told him, hey, these are shoulder pads, because he hasn't seen them in so long. So that's a positive. True Drew Sports here has a good, statement with Abe Lucas and George Fant being designated to return from IR along with the trade. Is John pushing chips in for the division, and do any other deals get done? I think there is, yes, a mindset of this division's weak. Like it actually is weak. The 49ers are reeling. The Rams are no longer what we thought they were going to be. Like I remember looking at the beginning of this year thinking the Rams are really going to give a push to the Niners for the top of the division. And currently, boy, was I wrong. And, the Cardinals kind of seem to be a roller coaster team. They're up some weeks, they're down other weeks. Seattle, if they can get into some consistency here and, potentially rack off some wins and, get healthy, they could actually potentially have a very good shot at winning this. So I think there is a bit of that in John's mind. And to your second part of this, Drew, with the do any other deals get done? I think this Buffalo game against Ed Oliver will be a real test to see if there isn't a potential move for a guard before the trade deadline. If Lincoln Tomlinson or Anthony Bradford really struggle, I could see them potentially moving to trying to get a guard, whether that's like a Brandon Scher from Jacksonville on an expiring deal as a veteran guy, or someone along those type of lines. It'll be very interesting because I think if they struggle, then this is your other deficiency, and now you need to address it. So that's something that could come out of this.
Well, I'll pop this one up right here too, man.
Go for it.
Something that you and I actually talked about, right?
Yep.
Just about how, he's spot on here with this, because we talked about that, how they were so late in the process that they weren't involved in a lot of the personnel. So it was like a lot of these free agents that were coming in. It wasn't like, Mike and John really analyzing it together. So now there is a chance within this season to say, hey, let's go get a guy here and let's go get a guy here and, do what they can this year. And that, what that also does, that gives you even more optimism that, look, this season, I don't even want to look ahead because we're right in the middle of this season, and who knows? You win a division, you get a home playoff game, and who knows from there? Who knows from there? But this gives you more optimism too when the offseason comes, that Mike has a full offseason with John to say, all right, here's our areas of need, and this is what I need specifically on the defense. So let's try to get there a little more. And like you said, this could be a 2-year process. You're not going to maybe fix every personnel problem, but you're getting to where you want to be. And that's sort of what you saw in Baltimore, right? He comes over essentially the same sort of deal when they had a last place kind of defense, got him to the middle of the pack. And then obviously last year, number 1 in the NFL. So, this guy knows defense, so it's just a matter of just being able to get some of the guys. And, he obviously, we have a lot of talent, but you look at the defense as a whole, and Baker was a guy that wasn't a fit. So out the door, here comes a guy that obviously Mike thinks highly on, and we made a move. So, yeah.
Here's another one just in the offensive line side from Drew. If Stone is healthy, do you think they put him in over MJ? I don't think so.
I hope not.
I hope not. And I wouldn't if I was in that situation, because your run game came alive against.
Well, yeah, why would you, right?
And this is what I mean with after the bye week, there's a very good chance that Stone Forsythe becomes your 5th tackle, because you'll have George Fant back, you'll have Abe Lucas back. Mike Jarrell plays well over these next couple of games. I see him now becoming a true backup to one of the spots.
Yeah.
So you may have a situation where George Fant becomes your backup left tackle and swing tackle still, but Mike Jarrell is truly your backup right tackle if you need him.
Yeah.
And he's your 4th tackle in a better rotation. I don't think Stone, if healthy, is going to get the start, because I think they saw a lot that they liked with Mike Jarrell. You listen to Mike Macdonald talk about how much they liked, and yes, there's things to clean up, but overall, I think, it'll be a good thing. And if Abe's not ready for the Niners game, but George Fant is, then George Fant will probably start. I don't think Mike Jarrell's keeping George Fant off the field, but I think he can keep Stone Forsythe off the field.
Yeah, and the other thing is, too, people can say, well, he hasn't gone against a Bosa and a Hutchinson, which Stone did, but you just see what Jarrell can do. Stone he's look, he was a great emergency tackle, but I think at this point, what you saw on Sunday, and they obviously drafted this kid, so he's young, he's got a lot of upside, unless he falls flat on his face this Sunday, and I think he's going to start. But if he falls flat on his face, maybe there's a conversation going into the Rams game. But again, you just saw so many good things from Jarrell. If Abe and Fant aren't ready for after the bye, then it would get interesting, because then you do see Nick Bosa and And, and that wouldn't be like a bad thing either. Like, I'd rather have Abe Lucas healthy, ready to go. But man, you know what? The other thing is you'd really get this kid would really get tested now against a guy like that. And just kind of, hey, maybe you're a little, maybe you're surprised, and then you really get excited if he plays a decent game, So, well, we'll see. But it's a better problem to have now. You know what I mean? Like now we're
Well,
talking
it
about
is.
other tackles that are, who do we play? Right? That gets good. But yeah, you know what? And that's the thing about Stone. Like no shade thrown at him. It's just he is who he is. He's a guy that we kept on this roster for that reason, where he had experience in case things went the way they have gone. And he was an emergency tackle for us. And then now we got this young kid that, looks like he's got a lot of upside.
Your biggest issue with Stone, and this is something I talked about on Dan's show, is the NFL, or sorry, I should say college now, is so pass happy and so spread based that there isn't a lot of downhill running. You're noticing in the NFL, and this is where we're talking about the linebacker situation, you're not seeing a lot of good Mike linebackers really coming out in the draft as much as you used to, because of how college has changed to this like 4-2-5 kind of defense, or 3-3-5. Like, you're not really seeing true Mikes anymore. You're seeing athletic linebackers that can cover and do these type of things. And so guys like a Roquan Smith for Mike Macdonald last year or 2 years ago was huge. Earnest Jones this year in this trade is big for Seattle. And so when you talk about that, though, you look at Stone Forsythe. He is good in pass protection. He's a tall guy. He struggles a bit, but he's better in pass protection than he is in run blocking because he can't anchor and drive properly. He doesn't have the leverage on these D linemen. So when I look at, the Seattle situation, I just don't see a way for him to, they may cut Stone Forsythe there and sign him back to the practice squad. That may be the move that comes eventually once all the guys are healthy, is that Stone Forsythe's future as a practice squad guy. The other interesting thing here, and I think one of our fans kind of brought it up, they asked about, here we go. Hawks fan Matt, with Fant's versatility, could we see him at right guard and Abe at right tackle?
Right.
I don't think you're going to see Fant move inside. Who I do think could be moving inside is Jason Peters when he gets called up at points, is as a guard. I think that's what you're more likely to see, is Jason Peters move into a guard role. So yeah, it'll be interesting that way with what they do with this O-line. Chris here comes in with another good one. This is very similar to Mike Macdonald's first year as DC in Baltimore. Week 8, he found a star linebacker when they traded for Roquan. Hopefully this is history repeating itself. I think there's a very good chance that it might be. Gary says he'd rather see Fant at left guard in place of Tomlinson. This is what I'm saying. If Tomlinson struggles versus Ed Oliver this weekend, I think there's a good chance Seattle Peters comes in, or they make a play and they go and get somebody, because they go
against somebody. Yeah,
they traded some cap money away. Baker was making 6, I think.
Yep.
And there may be some cap savings. I don't know. Curtis Allen, if you're still in here, you feel free
to chime in, man. If you're still watching, help us out.
If you're still watching, it would help us out.
But I think, that just shows that people just want anybody else in there.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And like you said, you start seeing like Abe come back, and then, Cross on the other side. Williams is playing better. So you feel like, hey, let's try to eliminate as much weak links as you can, right? There's a question for coach. I think he means you.
I think he does mean me. So Chris puts in a question. Is it impractical to have the O-line use the same philosophy as D-line and learn more than one position as they understand how their position affects everyone? So it's a little bit different. It's like, how I would describe it. For offensive linemen, they can learn multiple positions, but you want to keep them on the same side of the line they've been working on most of their career, because everything is in reverse when you move to the other side. So if you're a right tackle and they bump you over to the left side and you've done everything right hand, like basically right-handed your whole life, and now all of a sudden I'm telling you got to write with your left hand and kick with your left foot and do those things, it can take a big learning curve. Some guys can make that change. Some guys can't. Abe Lucas was a left tackle in college. He bumped over to the right side at the NFL level. He's been able to make it work. Guards, again, guard play, flipping and guard play isn't easy. You wouldn't want to guard to a tackle because that's, again, you're as a guard, you're used to playing with people around you and not having a lot of space, to now bumping out to a tackle spot where you've got from you to the sideline of space and guys coming off that edge you have to identify. So it could be an interesting, it's not as easy as D line where you're saying moving up and down the line. Like, you see Leonard Williams line up at D tackle and then he bounces out to end. It's a lot more difficult for the O-line. You can do it in some aspects, but not as an overall, like, same philosophy as the D-line, to answer that question. I hope that answers it for you, Chris.
Yeah, and this one here, like Thomas or Bradford. I mean, I think the Hawks they still have hopes for Bradford. He's a younger player. He's a mauler. He's aggressive. Whereas Tomlinson just, about to retire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Tomlinson's the replacement factor. Bradford has actually looked better against the Falcons. He really did.
Yeah, and I think they love his aggressiveness. Like he's a mean dude. That's the thing, and that's what you want out of your offensive lineman. And I'm not saying that. Look, he's looked amazing, but the guys got to remember too. He's a young dude, right? He hasn't been on this team a long time. I mean, Tomlinson's the one guy where it's just like you would replace, and you wouldn't feel bad about doing it, So
no, exactly. And so here's one from Rockman Drums. I guess he's talking to the point of Chris's comment. As a drummer, it's like playing drums left-handed. So I don't know for you, Rockman, if that's a hard thing to do if you're right-handed, switch over. But yeah, essentially that's kind of what it is. You're trying to do everything with the opposite hand, and it's not always the easiest thing to do. Gary puts in here, Jason Peters at guard could be interesting, and his veteran presence could be really valuable in building the O-line group. I agree, and I think that's part of the reason they brought him back on the practice squad, to help maybe, a Haynes, a Lamea, these type of guys who I can tell you for a fact, I've had talks with different people. Seattle is very high on Lamea. That is the reason they didn't cut him. They see him as the potential left guard future. And I think that's one thing we have to keep in mind is, yes, he may not be playing, but don't forget about Lamea. They are extremely, and Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb are extremely high on Lamea. They may not be saying it publicly, but within that building, they are extremely high on Lamea.
Well, and they've hid 3 guys on that roster, right? Like we don't like Sundell, Lamea, and Jarrell. So that you're taking up 3 roster spots. So that tells you that and we saw a taste of Jarrell on Sunday. So it's the point is, you don't just hide those guys away if you don't think much of them, right?
Exactly. So Chris comes back with another one. Bradford is Breno. I think he means Breno Giacomini from back in the day. So it'll be an interesting kind of situation. I don't know if he's Breno Giacomini, because Breno was actually a decent right tackle. He wasn't horrible, but he was decent. This is an interesting one. I'll let you talk to this a little bit there, Ryan. Hawk fan Matt, is it possible that Kobe supplants Jenkins at safety?
I mean, yeah, you and I talked about it last Sunday. Yeah, absolutely. We were both high on Kobe. We've been high on Kobe. You love the fact that you feel like it's his natural position back there. So yeah, I mean, I actually wouldn't mind seeing him over Jenkins. And again, Jenkins is one of those guys where he's another guy John brought in, the same with Baker, same with Dodson, same with who am I missing? Oh my goodness, the other safety, Wallace, right? So, yeah, there's no ties to these guys. Like it's not one of those things where Mike's gonna be like, well, you're back from injury, so you're slotted in. I think you saw a lot of good things from Kobe. He's aggressive. He hits. Yeah, I could 100% see it.
I think Kobe gives you more at the safety position and more of what the NFL is moving towards, where your safeties are interchangeable and they're not a true strong and a true free. Kobe showed that, when he came out, he was an extremely intellectual player. Like, he understood how schemes worked and stuff. And watching him back this weekend, yeah, there were some things he missed, but it wasn't nearly as apparent as Jenkins. He's in the right spot. He's athletic. I think him and Love together are going to be our safety tandem the rest of the year. I think when Jenkins comes back, he may roll in as that third kind of safety with Wallace and different sub packages. But I don't see Jenkins reclaiming his safety spot as quickly as it was maybe given to him in camp. I think part of that was Mike Macdonald needed to see what type of player Kobe Bryant was. He wasn't a guy he drafted.
No.
So he wasn't a Mike guy, but I think you listen to the way Mike talks about him now, he's become a Mike Macdonald guy.
Yeah. No, 100%. So I agree with you there too. That possibly could be the tandem the rest of the season, really.
It could be, that's for sure.
But yeah, exciting stuff, dude. Like I'm telling you right now, like this is just like if you look back and just the way people were talking a couple of weeks ago, right, about this team, and just and you're gonna get a lot of people like that, and it's normal, right? It's about being a fan. It's about emotions and reactions and expectations, and then there's a lot of people down on the squad, down on Gino, down on Mike, down on DK, down on a lot of guys. This defense, what 10 days off can do, and a win on the road, and just turnovers, and now some trades, and you kind of see what direction they want to take this team. And we got a tough test coming up. 100%, we got a tough test. So but again, if this team can play like they did on Sunday and compete, then that's what you can ask for. If you sort of see some of those same things and we lose, well, you can accept that. It's what was happening before that was hard to accept. And that's why you see trade like this too. Like, we have to fix this. It's not a Band-Aid though. And that's what people got to realize. This is the guy that they're high on. They're just not grabbing anybody and saying, okay, let's just fill somebody out, get Baker out, plug this guy and see if it works. So I think that that's a reason to be very optimistic about this squad moving forward. And again, first place in the div now. This is going to be a big test. It's going to be a big test coming up Sunday, how they respond at home. And we're going to jump into the Bills later on this week, but just as a squad moving forward. And like we said, November, December, we're nearing November. How's this team going to respond and look and ascend? And that's how we're going to judge the squad. But today, man, yeah, man, awesome news. So, I mean, I don't know if you got anything more to add to this, but
honestly, man, today was a really big day for the Hawks in a lot of fronts. The Abe Lucas news, George Fant news, the Earnest Jones trade. These are things that get you excited about the direction of this team going forward. It feels different. This type of move today felt different than a Pete Carroll move. Even the Leonard Williams trade last year, it doesn't feel the same. This feels like a directional change, a pivot, we made a mistake, we self-scouted, we're going to correct it and improve it, not slap, like you said, a Band-Aid on it and wait till the off season and try and address it then like we've done in the past. So no, I really like the way this is going. But yeah, no, we'll get our Bills preview on Saturday, get it out to all you guys before the game, and we'll have Jonas from the German Seahawkers coming on to join us for that. So it'll be fun, get him on the show and have his input on what he thinks this matchup with the Bills is like. And then we'll, break down any update on injury news and anything coming through the week. Get you guys all ready for that Sunday showdown with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. So we appreciate everyone chiming in, throwing your comments down. And guys, anybody watching right now, that if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go down and hit the sub button for us and share the videos and all that. It helps with the channel and just helps us keep bringing you guys this content that we love doing. So that's it. Yeah, man. Awesome day, all fronts. Yeah, let's enjoy it and get ready for Sunday. And like Bryce said, Saturday we got the preview show and the German Seahawkers, so look out for that. That's it for us. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.